We continue in the publication. Evidently then, this prophecy covers a much longer period of time. On the basis of Numbers 14:34 and Ezekiel 4:6, which speak of a day for a year, the 7 times would cover 2,520 years. Well, this is yet another place where connections are made without basis. And though interpretive formulas are helpful in explaining some texts, we're not warranted in creating connections where the scriptures are silent. That is, what basis does the Watchtower have in connecting the formulas, quote unquote, in Numbers 14 and Ezekiel 4 to the 7 times of Daniel 4? And if none are given, should the Watchtower be this dogmatic about the 1914 doctrine? And furthermore, are we warranted in applying the 2,520 years to the 7 times when Daniel 4 specifically tells us that this time period was fulfilled in Nebuchadnezzar? I mean, was the king really dethroned for that long? And as for Numbers 14 and Ezekiel 4, is there anything in these texts which give us a basis for making interpretive formulas and imposing them on other texts? And if so, where do we draw the line? Should we use that formula of a day for a year and apply it to any place we want where the word day occurs? And if not, then on what scriptural basis does the Watchtower have for making the connection with Daniel 4 when there's no connections made in the text? The publication further states that the 2,520 years began in October 607 BCE, when Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians and the Davidic king was taken off his throne. The period ended in October 1914. At that time, the appointed times of the nations ended, and Jesus Christ was installed as God's heavenly king. Alright, since A, the 2,520 years as well as the 607 date have been shown to be speculative, and B, the connections between Luke 21 and Daniel 4 are made without basis, and C, the scriptures support the idea of Christ's enthronement occurring at the ascension in the 1st century, then this paragraph made by the Watchtower has no merit. We continue. Just as Jesus predicted, his presence as heavenly king has been marked by the dramatic world developments: war, famine, earthquakes, pestilences. Such developments bear powerful testimony to the fact that 1914 indeed marked the birth of God's heavenly kingdom and the beginning of the last days of this present wicked system of things. Now, it's interesting to note that many Bible students that are not Jehovah's Witnesses hold that we are living in the last days without having any knowledge of 1914. And there's no disputing the fact that significant events did occur in 1914. But without a scriptural basis, what warrant is there for believing that Christ was enthroned in 1914? In addition, what scriptural basis does the Watchtower have in insisting that one cannot be a true Christian unless they hold to this complex doctrine? Now, in conclusion, I'd like to encourage any Jehovah's Witness who reads this not to take my word for it or the Society's. Instead, I would challenge you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. And if it turns out that the Watchtower's basis for 1914 falls short of its claims for themselves being God's sole channel of communication, then what will this mean for you as a Christian? Will you remain in the organization, or will you look for something else? And for many Jehovah's Witnesses, this information's not going to sway them one way or another. since they have determined in their minds that there's nowhere else to go, even if the 1914 doctrine proves to be wrong. But for others, they're going to feel lost. They're going to feel abandoned due to the society's strict policies on dissenting from their doctrines. And however discouraging this may be, I'd like to offer a few words of encouragement. Thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses have found happiness and contentment after leaving the Watchtower, and that's not because they found something else, but they found someone else. And this was the message of the early Christians. And when they were confronted with the gospel, many Jews were confused in figuring out where to go when, quote-unquote, God's organization, that is, the Jewish community, was shown to be inadequate for their salvation. But the early Christians didn't just point them to some other organization. Instead, they pointed them to the person of Jesus Christ for salvation. And it's the alternative I have for those who are becoming doubtful of the Watchtower's claims. Jesus says in John 5:24, "Most truly I say to you, he that hears my word and believes him that sent me has everlasting life. And he does not come into judgment, but has passed over from death into life." So if you believe in Jesus Christ and the one that has sent him, you can have eternal life right now and be sure that you will not come into judgment. And Christ's invitation is for all who are willing to place their faith in him and the one who has sent him. And until you do this, you cannot be saved, no matter how much you submit to an organization.